Hi, this is Brad, and welcome to Brad English Podcast, your daily English listening podcast helping you speak English naturally. I am so glad you decided to listen to this episode today because I truly believe what we are going to discuss could be a turning point for you. Over the years, I have watched many English learners study the language with real effort and real dedication, and I've noticed something very important. The learners who become fluent are not always the ones who study the hardest or the most. They are the ones who have developed specific daily habits that keep them moving forward consistently, even on the difficult days. The learners who stay stuck, no matter how talented they are, tend to lack these habits. Today I'm going to share 7 of those habits with you. Not theory, not abstract advice, but 7 specific daily practices that fluent learners do that most beginners do not. Each habit is something you can decide to start today. You do not need special equipment. You do not need to change your schedule dramatically, and you do not need to be in an English-speaking country. You just need to decide that you are going to do things differently from this point forward. Let us look at the first habit together. The first habit that separates fluent learners from those who remain stuck is so obvious that many people overlook it completely. Fluent learners listen to English every single day, not most days. Not when they feel motivated. Not just during their English class on Tuesday evening. Every single day without exception, even if it is just for 10 minutes while they are getting dressed in the morning or walking to the supermarket. This daily listening habit is the foundation of everything else, because listening is how your brain absorbs the rhythm, melody, vocabulary, grammar patterns, and natural sounds of the English language in a way that no other activity can replicate. There is strong scientific evidence behind this habit. Language acquisition research consistently shows that learners who are exposed to their target language by which daily make significantly faster progress than those who study intensively but infrequently. This is because language learning is not like learning a set of facts that you can study once and remember. It is like developing a physical skill, similar to learning a musical instrument or learning to swim. And daily contact with the language keeps the neural pathways active and growing. Gaps in that contact allow the pathways to weaken, and then you have to rebuild what you lost before you can move forward again. The most important thing about the daily listening habit is that it does not need to feel like studying. In fact, some of the most effective listening happens when you are not trying to study at all, when you are simply exposing yourself to natural English in a relaxed, low-pressure way. You listen to English podcasts while you cook dinner. Put on an English radio station while you clean the house. Watch English YouTube content about topics you genuinely enjoy. Listen to English music and let the lyrics sink in passively. All of this counts. All of this is building your English brain, even when it does not feel like work. The secret is simply to make sure that English audio is present in your life every single day. Because consistency is more powerful than intensity, and daily exposure is more powerful than occasional deep study. The second habit is perhaps the most psychologically difficult of all 7, and it is also the one that makes the biggest difference. Fluent learners speak English even when they know they are going to make mistakes. They open their mouths in imperfect situations. They say the wrong word sometimes. They use incorrect grammar occasionally. They mispronounce things. And then they keep going. They do not stop mid-sentence to apologize extensively. They do not refuse to speak until they feel completely ready. They speak now, with what they have, and they trust the process of improvement to do its work over time. What makes this habit so hard for many learners is the emotional component of it. Making mistakes in a language feels deeply personal in a way that making mistakes in mathematics or science does not. When you get a math problem wrong, you feel like you got the math problem wrong. When you make a mistake in English, many learners feel like they got themselves wrong. like the mistake reflects on their intelligence or their value as a person. This is an emotional connection that you need to consciously work to dissolve because it is not accurate and it is holding you back significantly. The truth about mistakes in language learning is that they are not just acceptable, they are essential. They are the primary mechanism through which your brain receives feedback and adjusts. Every time you say something wrong and notice it, or a kind listener gently corrects it, your brain updates its model of the language. Without the mistake, there would be no update, and without the update, there would be no progress. Fluent learners have understood this at a deep level. They have made peace with imperfection because they have seen firsthand that imperfect speaking leads to improved speaking faster than any amount of silent preparation ever could. If you want to take one thing from this episode and apply it today, let it be this. Speak something in English before this day ends, even if it is imperfect, especially if it is imperfect. Vocabulary is the lifeblood of language, and fluent learners know this. But what separates them from beginners is not just the number of words they know, it is the system they use to learn and retain vocabulary. Most learners encounter a new word, look it up in a dictionary, maybe write it down once, and then forget it within 48 hours. This is not because they are bad learners. It is because random, unstructured vocabulary encounter does not work with the way human memory functions. Memory is built through spaced repetition, which means seeing or using something multiple times over increasing intervals of time. Fluent learners have a consistent vocabulary system built around this principle. They keep a vocabulary notebook or a phone application where they record new words, not just with their translation, but with an example sentence they created themselves, using a real situation from their own life. If they learn the word anxious, they do not write anxious. Nervous, they write anxious. I felt anxious before my presentation at work on Monday. That personal connection to a real experience is what makes the word memorable and what makes it available for use in future conversations. The word is no longer an abstract label, it is a piece of their actual life. The other key part of the vocabulary system used by fluent learners is daily review. Why 5 minutes every morning going over the words from the previous 3 to 7 days is enough to dramatically increase long-term retention. This does not need to be an elaborate ritual. It can be as simple as reading through the previous week of vocabulary notebook entries while you drink your morning coffee. The words that come back easily when you review them are becoming part of your active vocabulary. The words that you have to think hard to remember need another exposure. Over time, this daily review session becomes one of the highest return activities in your entire learning practice. One of the most underrated habits of fluent learners is the deliberate restructuring of their daily environment to include as much English as possible. Most people think of English learning as something that happens during designated study time, and everything outside of that time belongs to their first language. Fluent learners think very differently. They look at every corner of their daily environment and ask, "Can this be in English?" And wherever the answer is yes, they make the change. In practical terms, this means the phone and computer interfaces are set to English. The social media feeds include English content creators and English news accounts. The music playlist contains English songs. The podcasts are in English. The books on the bedside table are in English, even if they are simple ones. The notes and to-do lists are written in English. When they search for something online, they search in English first. This might sound like a small thing, but across an entire day, the cumulative effect of seeing and hearing English everywhere, in every context, is absolutely enormous. The scientific reason this works comes from research on incidental learning, which is the process of learning something through regular exposure without deliberately trying to learn it. When you change your phone to English, you learn words like settings, notifications, update, available, and storage. simply by seeing them dozens of times every day without any formal study. These words become part of your English vocabulary effortlessly, and they free up your formal study time for more complex and challenging language. The environment is one of the most powerful forces shaping your habits. Kant and Fluent learners use it consciously and deliberately in service of their English goals. Fluent learners make a conscious choice at some point in their learning journey to stop focusing primarily on textbook English and start focusing on the real English that people actually use in daily life. This shift is important because textbook English and real English are sometimes quite different. And spending years learning the textbook version can actually make you sound unnatural and old-fashioned to native speakers. Textbook English tends to be formally correct but socially stiff, while real English is full of contractions, informal vocabulary, phrasal verbs, idioms, and natural conversational patterns that no textbook fully captures. Real English includes phrases like I am going to, shortened to I'm gonna, in casual speech, and or want to becoming wanna, or the very common use of filler phrases like, kind of, and sort of, that make spoken English sound natural and relaxed. Real English includes phrasal verbs that might seem illogical, but are universally used, like give up, run out of, look forward to, and get along with. Fluent learners consume real English through films, television series, podcasts, conversations with native speakers, and online content. And they pay attention to the natural patterns they hear, not just the grammatically correct ones. One of the most powerful but frequently neglected habits of fluent learners is the regular tracking and celebration of their own progress. Language learning is a long road with no clear finish line, and without some form of progress tracking, it is very easy to feel like you are not moving at all, even when you are improving significantly. This feeling of standing still is one of the most common reasons learners give up, and it is almost always based on a false perception rather than the reality of their development. Fluent learners counter this by keeping records of their progress in various forms. Some record themselves speaking every month and compare recordings over time. Some keep a journal of new words and phrases they have used successfully in real conversations. Some track the complexity of the texts they can now read comfortably compared to 6 months ago. All of these forms of tracking serve the same purpose. They give you concrete evidence that you are moving forward, even when the day-to-day progress feels invisible. Seeing real evidence of your own improvement is one of the most motivating experiences a learner can have, and it builds the momentum that carries you through the difficult stretches. The seventh and final habit is the one that makes all the other habits possible, and it is the simplest to describe even though it is the hardest to practice. Fluent learners never quit. They do not quit on the bad days. They do not quit when the progress feels invisible. They do not quit when a difficult conversation leaves them feeling embarrassed or inadequate. They do not quit when life gets busy and their study time shrinks to almost nothing. They find a way to keep some connection to English alive every single day, even if that connection is just one sentence spoken out loud before they fall asleep. The reason this habit is so important is that language learning has a compounding nature, similar to financial investment. The progress you make in month 6 is built on the foundation of months 1 through 5. If you quit in month 4 and restart in month 7, you have not lost everything. But you have lost some of the momentum and some of the automatic neural connections that take time to rebuild. The learner who goes slowly but consistently always ends up further ahead than the learner who goes intensely but inconsistently. And the learner who never quits always ends up further ahead than the learner who restarts repeatedly. On the hardest days, when English feels impossible and progress feels like a cruel illusion, fluent learners do the smallest possible thing that still counts as practice. They say one sentence out loud. They listen to 5 minutes of English audio. They read a single paragraph. They write 3 words in their vocabulary notebook. The size of the action does not matter. What matters is that the chain of daily practice remains unbroken. Because as long as the chain is unbroken, improvement is inevitable. It is not a question of whether you will become fluent. It is only a question of when. Today we covered all 7 habits of learners who actually become fluent in English. Listening every day, speaking even when imperfect, building a vocabulary system, changing your environment, studying real English, tracking your progress, and never quitting. None of these habits are secret or magical. They are all completely available to you starting right now. The difference between where you are and where you want to be is not talent or time or location. It is the daily practice of these 7 habits, applied consistently over the weeks and months ahead. I want to leave you with one final thought. You are already demonstrating one of these habits right now. You are listening to English today. You are spending your time in an English environment, and you are building your brain. That is habit 1 already in motion. All you need to do now is add the others one at a time at your own pace. Start with the one that feels most accessible. You practice it until it feels natural. Then add the next 7 habits. 7 steps toward the fluent, free, confident English speaker that you are absolutely capable of becoming.